I hired a fake girlfriend to stop my mom's relentless nagging, but in a moment of absolute clumsiness, my finger slipped, and I accidentally dragged my ice-cold CEO into the family group chat. My relatives immediately started cheering for me, but I was breaking out in a cold sweat of pure terror. I frantically clicked on CEO Shen Yushi's profile. President Shen, I am beyond sorry, my family has been pressuring me to marry like crazy. I originally intended to add my best bro, just to stall for time and calm them down. I never imagined I'd accidentally drag you into this mess. I'm so sorry for disturbing you so late at night. I swear it'll never happen again. After sending that desperate, heartfelt explanation, I was still terrified that Shen Yushi wouldn't buy it. So I screenshotted my chats with my friend, along with the evidence of my mom's marriage threats, and sent them all over. I capped it off with President Shen, I'm truly deeply sorry, followed by a frantic kowtow apology emoji. I seriously couldn't believe my own stupidity. Adding the female demon herself to my family chat, my only hope was that a thorough explanation would save me. Whether Shen Yushi would actually believe me was entirely up to her. However, on the other side, Shen Yuxi sat alone in her massive 1,200 square foot office, scrolling through my frantic messages with genuine amusement, while watching the family group erupt with greetings. Slowly, she began typing a response in the chat box. I gripped my phone tightly, still hovering on my private chat with Shen Yushi, when I suddenly heard my mom let out a piercing shriek. Son, look at this. My heart sank. Shen Yushi hadn't replied to me privately. Instead, she was actually speaking in the family group. She must be exposing the truth right now. If my mom finds out that I tried to use a fake girlfriend to fool her, it's going to be an absolute disaster. With my heart hammering against my ribs, I stole a fearful glance at my mother. Just as I was preparing to confess everything, I noticed my mom clutching her phone, her face lighting up with a smile more radiant than ever. I was completely bewildered. So I scrambled to open the Loving Family WeChat group to see the damage. What I saw made my jaw literally drop onto the back of my hand. Dearest auntie and uncle, thank you so much for the warm welcome. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Shen Yushi, but you can all just call me Xiaoxi. Once work settles down, we're heading straight to get our marriage license. I was completely flabbergasted. I couldn't fathom what kind of game Shen Yushi was playing. But I had a gut feeling that she wasn't actually angry. Instead, she was actively playing along with my charade, and she seemed to be having a blast doing it. Mentioning a marriage license? That is absolutely unhinged. This didn't seem like something a cold legendary female demon would ever actually do. Just as I was spiraling in confusion, my phone let out 2 sharp pings. I finally received a private message from Shen Yushi, but it was just 2 words understood. I was officially lost. Snapping back to reality, I watched the family group chat overflow with non-stop notifications, and I felt my soul leaving my body. What exactly is Shen Yushi trying to pull? She was actually chatting with them like they were old friends. I hurriedly fired off another message to her. President Shen, since you're aware of the situation, could you please excuse yourself from the group? At the end of the day, she's still my boss. If I actually let my mom kick her out like a stranger, I'd be way too terrified to face the consequences. Besides, she hadn't actually done anything wrong. I was the idiot who dragged her into this. Half a minute later, Shen Yuxi's reply finally blinked onto my screen. 4 simple words that left me staring like a fool. Why should I leave? I typed back decisively, President Shen, because this is my private family group, not an internal company workspace. I thought my point was crystal clear. This is my personal sanctuary, and President Shen has zero business being here. But the next second I was hit with total mental paralysis. Shen Yushi replied, it's my territory now. Simultaneously, the family group chat was popping off with new messages. They were already deep into discussions about renting an apartment for us, so we could start living together immediately. They even debated who would cook and clean after we wed. No surprise there, it would definitely be me. And Shen Yushi was actually playing along the entire time, responding with a tone so incredibly natural, it was as if she truly was my devoted girlfriend. Outside, the rhythm of the rain began to intensify. Hearing the downpour, my glowing, ecstatic mother glanced toward the window. The rain is getting heavy, she noted. Xiaosai is probably still stuck at the office working late. She swiped at me, don't just sit there like a statue. Hurry up and go pick Xiaoxi up from work. Does she even need a ride? Besides, it's pouring out there. Shouldn't I stay here and enjoy a bowl of hot soup? I was about to claim she was already home when my phone vibrated twice against my palm. I checked it, come to my office, from Shen Yushi. That cold, ruthless tone, yeah, that's definitely her. It looked like I couldn't dodge this trip today, but it was a perfect chance to have a real talk with her. I needed to find out what her endgame was. She refused to leave the group chat, and even gave them a full-blown introduction. Even though she strategically hid the truth, showing them only the tip of her icy personality, it was more than enough to make my family obsessed. Isn't she just making things worse for me? Resolved, I stood up abruptly. Under the watchful, doting eyes of my relatives, I declared with righteous conviction, "You're right, Mom. I'm heading out right now to take Xiaoxi home." I puffed out my chest, chin held high, and marched toward the door like a soldier on a mission. "Are you brainless? You're leaving without an umbrella?" My mom grumbled while pushing herself up, as if she had just remembered something vital. She hurriedly added, "Pack some of this hot soup to bring for Xiaoxi." Grandmother chimed in with a beaming smile. "There's still plenty of pork bone broth in the pot. It's been simmering for ages. It smells heavenly." My aunt joined the chorus. Exactly. I'll go box it up." Since she was closest to the kitchen, she disappeared inside to prep the container. In less than 2 minutes, she emerged with the hot broth securely packed and handed me a massive double-sized umbrella. She couldn't resist adding a final nagging warning. "Don't you dare ride that electric scooter. It's too dangerous in this weather. It's fine if you take a tumble, but you're picking up a girl in a prestigious position. So don't you dare hinder that poor child's career." I was honestly at a total loss for words. It seemed this situation was spiraling way out of control. Everyone is already so head over heels for Shen Yushi. If I dared to reveal the truth now, I'd probably be exiled from the family tree entirely. Without a second to waste, I bolted downstairs and hailed a taxi racing toward the company at top speed. By the time I arrived, the rain was coming down in sheets, perfectly mirroring the chaotic storm in my own heart. 5 minutes later, I was standing right outside Shen Yushi's office door. I gave a hesitant knock, and a frigid voice echoed from within. There was no mistaking that it was Shen Yushi. Her voice had that signature, unmistakable edge. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. "Come in," she said, and a flicker of a smile actually crossed her lips, a look I had never seen on her face before. That inadvertent, subtle curve of her mouth was breathtakingly beautiful, like a ray of sunlight piercing through a winter haze. I had to admit President Shen is drop-dead gorgeous. I offered a polite "President Shen," but she didn't even look up as she replied, "One moment. I'll speak with you after I finish talking to them." Her tone was formal and ice-cold, nothing like the amiable, sweet, and polite big sister she was portraying in the chat. The most infuriating part? She actually went right back to chatting in my family group. Compared to her, I felt like a forgotten orphan. I decided I had to put a stop to this performance. "President Shen, you seem quite fascinated by my family chat." Shen Yushi finally looked up, her stunning almond eyes sparkling with life. Spotting my damp rain-flecked hand, clutching a bulky food container yin, she couldn't help but ask, "What on earth is that?" I thudded the container down onto her desk and looked her straight in the eye. "This is the bone soup my mother insisted I bring you." She used an insulated flask so it wouldn't get cold, claiming it would warm your soul. She also ordered me to drive you home. Shen Yuxi froze in genuine surprise. And then an unexpected wave of warmth flooded her heart. She had always come from a privileged background, where domestic helpers handled every single meal. She had never once tasted a bowl of soup lovingly made by a mother's hand. To the outside world, she was the quintessential silver spoon heiress, a gifted favorite of the gods with everything at her feet. But only Shen Yuxi knew the true weight of her parents' suffocating expectations. To mold her into a perfect successor, she was shipped abroad as a child, while her parents stayed home to expand their empire. That chronic lack of affection had forged her into an incredibly resilient yet stoic woman. Now my family's warmth was like a soft feather, gently tickling the walls of her guarded heart. It was a sensation both comforting and bizarre, making her unconsciously crave just a little more. But I cut through the atmosphere with blunt honesty. "Look, my mom only did this because she's obsessed with her future daughter-in-law. Now that we've cleared the air, I'm going to say it one more time. I need you to leave my family group chat immediately. Otherwise, if this charade keeps snowballing, my mother is genuinely going to believe you're the one." The thought of my mother getting hurt in the end was a guilt I simply couldn't stomach. I decided that even if I got fired today, I had to force Shen Yushi to quit that group. But right at that high-stakes moment, both mine and Shen Yushi's phones began vibrating uncontrollably in sync. It was a message from my mom, "Xiaoxi honey, make sure you drink that soup. If the flavor isn't quite right, just tell me and I'll adjust it. It's too dangerous for a girl to head home so late. From now on, make Lin Yuan wait for you to finish work. Let him be your personal chauffeur and see you home safely." Shen Yushi typed back, "Uncle Auntie, thank you so much for your kindness." The second she hit send, she placed her phone back on the desk and turned her intense focus directly toward me. Suddenly, our gazes locked in a silent standoff. I felt a surge of panic. To be perfectly honest, this was the very first time I had ever observed Shen Yushi from such an intimate distance. Her large, expressive eyes seemed to speak volumes, framed by lashes that were impossibly long and thick. Even the curve of her lips was flawlessly elegant, coated in that bold crimson lipstick. She looked like a morning rose glistening with dew. Who wouldn't lose their mind over a beauty like this? However, I have enough self-awareness to know we come from two completely different worlds. She's the untouchable, high and mighty CEO, while I'm just a corporate slave at the bottom of the food chain. After a moment of reflection, Shen Yushi spoke candidly. "Honestly, I've grown quite fond of your family." Hearing that, I was completely blindsided, unable to even formulate a response. I chose to remain silent. But Shen Yushi's next set of words left me even more confused and scratching my head. "Is there something about me you're unsatisfied with?" Seeing my continued silence, Shanyushi decisively pulled a set of keys from her drawer. There's no need to rent an apartment. This is for a luxury villa in Thompson Riviera. Good grief, this place is easily worth tens of millions. And she's just handing it to me. But what exactly is she trying to pull here? I flashed a wry smile and joked, President Shen, are you telling me you're in desperate need of a security guard? Shanyushi didn't beat around the bush. She cut straight to the point and laid out her terms. How about we strike a deal? I'll stay in your family group chat and continue playing the role of the perfect future bride, provided you help me deal with my own family in return. I've just reviewed your personal file. You're only 23 years old, while I'm already 28 years old. When it comes to the pressure to marry, I'm suffering far more than you are. So what do you think? Now it all finally clicked into place. This wasn't just some random impulse. This was a long-term tactical play. Looking at it objectively, this big sister is undeniably stunning. Most importantly, my mom is genuinely obsessed with her. If I went back now and exposed the truth, the shock would probably be too much for my mom to handle. Maybe I should just give in. After all, I'm not the one losing out in this arrangement. Seeing my hesitation, Shanyushi pulled out yet another set of keys from her pocket. This is for the villa right by Swan Lake. If it's too small for your taste, we can always upgrade. I instantly cursed my own hesitation. If I kept playing hard to get, would she end up handing me the keys to a literal castle? Forget it, President Shen. Keep your keys, I can afford my own rent. But as for that proposal you just made, I'm down to give it a shot. Upon hearing my answer, a flash of genuine surprise flickered within Shanyushi's stunning eyes. She stood up slowly and extended her right hand, her crimson lips curling into a meaningful, unfathomable smirk. A pleasure doing business with you. I guess I've officially boarded the CEO's ship of schemes, huh? Though I have to admit this pirate ship feels pretty damn comfortable. President Shen, so when exactly do I infiltrate the enemy lines? You know, like joining your family group? To experience that signature elderly concern. At the mention of her own family, Shanyushi's composure wavered for a split second. She sank back into her chair, crossing her legs elegantly. You don't need to join any group. You only need to handle my parents. So I only have to deal with 2 people. That sounds like a walk in the park. Just as I was letting out a sigh of relief, Shanyushi's voice rang out cold as ice. My parents are not easily fooled. Prepare yourself mentally. I'll brief you on the details tomorrow. Just as she spoke, the sharp click-clack of high heels echoed through the corridor. The newcomer was Shanyushi's secretary, Si Qingqing. After 3 crisp knocks, she called out, President Shen, may I come in? Upon receiving permission, Si Qingqing stepped inside, looking apologetic. Forgive me, President Shen, I was in the shower just now and didn't hear the rain start. I'm sorry to keep you waiting. But before she could finish, she jumped startled by the shadow standing before her. She whirled around glaring at me. How did you get in here? It's nearly midnight. Why is there a man inside? President Shen's private office security. Who let this guy in? Shanyushi intervened calmly. This is Lin Yuan from the design department. I'm the one who summoned him here. Hearing Shanyushi vouch for me, Si Qingqing's hostile expression softened instantly. Si Qingqing finally let out a breath of relief, turning her gaze toward Lin Yuan to size him up. So this was the legendary Lin Yuan everyone was talking about. Just a few days ago, during the heated project for the old neighborhood renovation, President Shen had been absolutely fuming with rage. The final design that calmed the storm was his creation. It was nothing short of a stroke of genius, something most veteran designers couldn't dream of. Because of that brilliant blueprint, President Shen even gave him a rare shout out at the meeting. Everyone knows that earning a compliment from the CEO is basically harder than climbing to the heavens. She had even mentioned him several times in private, insisting on keeping a close eye on his progress to groom him for the top. So naturally, Si Qingqing had etched this man's name deep into her memory. She just never had the chance to meet the man in the flesh. Now that he was here, it wasn't just his design talent that popped. He was actually quite the visual. Standing over 6 feet tall, he looked sharp, clean, and put together. Even his fashion sense was top tier. But still at this ungodly hour, why on earth did President Shen summon him to her office? Seeing that the CEO's assistant had arrived, Lin Yuan didn't plan on overstaying his welcome. He stepped towards Shanyushi's mahogany desk. I've delivered the goods early. He was about to turn on his heel and leave, but the very next second his gaze locked onto Shanyushi's stunningly beautiful eyes. Who said I wasn't going to drink it? That one sentence left Si Qingqing completely blindsided. What in the world is the vibe between these two? The truth was, Shanyushi hadn't eaten a single bite all night, but she had no intention of eating in front of Lin Yuan. She lowered her head back to the document in her hands. Leave the soup, you're dismissed. Is she joking? Lin Yuan had survived the family battlefield for years. His counter-reconnaissance skills were peak level, especially since this was Mom's first time sending soup to her. If he didn't bring that empty container back, wouldn't it look like she didn't eat? Or worse, that he didn't stay to make sure she finished it? Do you really want my mom to start overthinking things? Shanyushi paused to reconsider. That container held far more than just a simple broth. It carried the sincere warmth of an elder's heart. If I don't take even a single sip, I'm afraid it would be incredibly disrespectful, especially since I'm currently carrying the title of Lin Yuan's girlfriend. She didn't utter a word, simply pulling the food container toward her in silence. Beside her, Si Qingqing's eyes widened to the size of saucers. She honestly began to wonder if she was hallucinating. Si Qingqing started second-guessing Lin Yuan's true identity yet again. Who exactly is this guy? Could he be President Shen's long-lost younger brother? Otherwise, why on earth would she eat something he just handed her? Staring at the massive marrow bones inside, Shen Yuxi's elegant eyebrows knitted together slightly. It wasn't out of disgust, but rather because the bones were just so gargantuan. Usually when her domestic helpers prepared meals, the bones were meticulously cut into bite-sized pieces. Looking at this palm-sized beef bone, it was the first time Shen Yuxi had ever seen anything so rustic. She was completely at a loss as to how to even start. Seeing her frown and hesitate, Si Qingqing swallowed hard in nervous anticipation. If it's too much trouble, just forget it. I can always head back and lie to my mom, telling her that you already finished it. Having said that, Lin Yuan took 2 steps forward, prepared to finish off the bucket of soup himself. A flash of guarded wariness appeared in Shen Yuxi's eyes. Her tone left absolutely no room for negotiation. Don't touch it. She reached out, picked up a bone, and began tearing the succulent meat from it. She proceeded to take small, delicate bites, slowly and methodically finishing every last scrap of meat. Afterwards, Shen Yuxi lifted the container, taking a cautious sip of the rich broth inside. The deep, savory aroma of the beef was intoxicating. With a look of pure satisfaction, she set the flask down, and finally turned her gaze back toward Lin Yuan. Now you may take the container back. Lin Yuan stood there stunned, but the one even more shell-shocked was Si Qingqing. President Shen tearing beef bones apart with her bare hands, her intuition screamed that this man named Lin Yuan and President Shen had a relationship that was anything but ordinary. Please convey my thanks to your mother. This is truly the first time I've ever tasted such a delicious, hearty beef soup. Lin Yuan blinked in surprise. He never expected the Ice Queen CEO to actually say thank you. But regardless of his internal snark, Lin Yuan realized he definitely preferred this version of the stunning CEO. However, Lin Yuan kept his thoughts to himself, grabbing the thermos and exiting the office. The moment he got home, his mom hit him with an interrogation. Tell me the truth. How long have you and Xiaoxi been a thing? Looking at his mother's ecstatic expression, it was obvious she was obsessed with this potential daughter-in-law. She's gorgeous, well-mannered, and comes from such an elite background. Finding a girl like that is like winning the lottery. Just yesterday, he claimed to be single. And now a top-tier beauty falls from the sky. She has the car, the house, and she's even a high-ranking executive. Lin Yuan finally spoke up. Actually, it's been a while. But since Xiaoxi is 28 this year, and a bit older than me, I was too nervous to mention it. Who cares about age? What century are you living in? As long as 2 people truly love each other, that's all that matters. I'm telling you, Xiaoxi is a gem of a girl. You'd better treat her right. Lin Yuan chuckled softly. And how exactly do you know she's such a gem? How could I not know? I just messaged her to ask if she made it home. And she said she was already tidying up the place. She wants to make sure you're comfortable when you move in. After saying that, she pulled up the family group chat and shoved the screen in Lin Yuan's face. Shen Yuxi had actually posted a photo of a bedroom. The bed was massive and looked incredibly plush, adorned with 2 large cozy backrests. It looked like absolute heaven to sleep on. Then came the avalanche of messages from the relatives, a spectacular scene of everyone praising her virtuous nature. To be honest, Lin Yuan still couldn't wrap his head around it. Why would the usually cold and untouchable President Shen act like a completely different person whenever she was in his family group chat? The most mind-blowing part was her using emojis. Seeing her ooh-woo through the night kept him wide awake. Naturally, he ended up suffering from a severe case of insomnia. By the time he woke up the next morning, it was already 8 a.m. He let out a weary sigh. Time to get up and continue grinding for Shen Yuxi's empire. She was the big boss after all. Only by his blood, sweat, and tears could the leadership maintain their lavish lifestyle. So technically saying I'm the one feeding her isn't exactly a lie, right? Lin Yuan dragged himself out of bed and into the living room, spotting a plastic bag resting on the dining table. Inside were 4 large steaming hot buns. He snatched one and stuffed it into his mouth, shrugging into his jacket while multitasking his breakfast. Then he headed toward his trusty little electric scooter and pulled into the office right as the clock struck 9. After pouring himself a glass of lukewarm water, he sipped it while pulling out his phone to perform his daily check-in on the family group chat. One glance at the screen and he nearly choked in shock. President Shen is terrifyingly dedicated to this role. At 6 a.m. sharp, she had posted about going for a run, capping it off with, "A brand new day, let's do our best everyone." Right below that was a flood of replies from his aunt, his uncle's wife, and of course his mother. It's true what they say, the older you get, the earlier you wake. All the elders in his family were early birds, and they were absolutely obsessed with healthy living. Hearing that Shen Yuxi was out running sent them into a frenzy of excitement. A young person today who actually sticks to a running routine. That is such a rare and precious quality. His mother took it a step further, making her stance clear. She hoped that in the future, Shen Yuxi could drag Lin Yuan along for these workouts, to sweat out all that laziness from his system. Lin Yuan could only stare at the screen in utter disbelief. Does running somehow grant immortality or something? The moment his mother saw Lin Yuan active in the chat, she snapped back. Did you take the buns I left on the table? Yeah, I did. They weren't even salty this time, super tasty. Were those meant for you? I packed those specifically for Xiaoxi. Don't tell me you ate every single one yourself. I should have known my mom wasn't being warm and caring by actually preparing breakfast for her own son. It was all intended for Shen Yuxi. It wasn't that he wanted to be greedy, but there's nothing else to do during a commute except snack on some buns. So naturally, he had polished off all the four. Meanwhile, Shen Yuxi was in her office sipping gourmet coffee, her eyes glued to the computer screen, as she researched how to bond with your boyfriend's family. Shen Yuxi was a perfectionist to her core. If she committed to a task, she would settle for nothing less than absolute excellence. Even playing the part of a fake daughter-in-law was no exception. She was scrolling through the content with immense interest. When a private message popped up, President Shen, you might want to check the family group chat. Shen Yuxi immediately opened the chat and boy was she in for a surprise. What she saw left her completely blindsided. It finally clicked for Shen Yuxi. The reason for all this chaos was that Lin Yuan had polished off the buns Auntie made for her, and now Auntie was absolutely fuming. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry, yet she felt a strange, inexplicable tug at her heartstrings. Auntie, please don't be mad at him. I've actually been trying to lose weight lately, and those buns are a total carb trap. I was the one who insisted Lin Yuan eat them. Sure enough, the moment the future daughter-in-law spoke, the maternal wrath shifted perfectly away from Lin Yuan and toward her. Xiaosai, tell me the truth, did that brat threaten you into saying that? Just say the word and Auntie will back you up. It's just that you look so thin. I only wanted to give you a little extra nourishment. Work is hard enough as it is. If you don't eat well, how will you manage? What's your favorite food? Auntie will whip it up for you tomorrow and have Lin Yuan deliver it personally. From now on, I'm in charge of your meals. The food outside is just processed garbage. While Lin Yuan's mom could be a total nightmare to him, she was incredibly sweet and generous to everyone else. Shen Yuxi never expected. Auntie would actually offer to cater her daily breakfast. She bit her lip, overwhelmed by a sudden wave of genuine emotion. Honestly, after working for so many years, her own mother had never once bothered to ask if she was even eating properly. Their only obsession was when the Shen family bloodline would finally be secured. Despite being touched by the gesture, Shen Yuxi had no intention of letting Lin Yuan's mother slave away over breakfast every day. That would be way too much trouble for the poor woman. How could she possibly be that thick-skinned? That's really not necessary, Auntie. Our company has its own cafeteria, and the food there is actually top tier. Reading Shen Yuxi's blatant lie of a response, Lin Yuan felt like he was watching a masterclass in gaslighting. While the company's food is undeniably decent, Lin Yuan still felt a strange urge to burst out laughing. But laughter aside, he didn't miss a beat in playing along with the ruse. Exactly, Mom. Our CEO is actually a saint, and the cafeteria is genuinely top tier. Top tier. We get a full 4-course meal and soup every day, complete with chicken drumsticks. As Lin Yuan was focused on his phone, he suddenly heard his colleague Xiao Wang's frantic voice. I just spotted the living Yama. That jerk has a face like thunder this morning, looking like someone owes him a fortune. He's definitely coming here to raise hell in a minute. The living Yama they spoke of was Dong Wanfeng, the supervisor of the design department. He was a man with a massive gut and a temper that was even larger. At the mere mention of the living Yama and the news of Dong's foul mood, the team's morale plummeted. Everyone began groaning and sighing in despair. Rumor has it that for the old neighborhood renovation project, he didn't get his usual under-the-table kickback. The materials weren't sourced from his cronies this time. It was an open secret in the office that Dong Nanfeng had sticky fingers. He loved to meddle with the finalized blueprints, secretly swapping out high-end materials for cheap junk. However, this particular urban renewal project was Shen Yuxi's hand-picked flagship venture. She was using it as a major PR move. And if it failed, there would be hell to pay with the CEO. So the team had flatly rejected his demand to swap materials. Since Dong Nanfeng was losing out on his dirty money, it was no surprise he was in such a wretched mood. While the group was still gossiping, heavy rhythmic footsteps echoed from the hallway. Lin Yuan, get over here, my office now. Hearing the living Yama summon Lin Yuan, every pair of eyes in the room instantly locked onto him. It looked like Lin Yuan was the designated sacrificial lamb today. Dong Nanfeng's suppressed rage was about to explode on him. Lin Yuan was genuinely caught off guard that the boss would call out a newcomer like himself. Still, he wasn't exactly trembling in his boots. He hadn't done anything to offend the man. Calmly and collectedly, he stood up and followed Dong Nanfeng out of the room. They arrived at Dong Nanfeng's private office. He motioned for Lin Yuan to close the door. Once Lin Yuan had shut it firmly, He gestured for him to sit without uttering a word. Lin Yuan had already deduced the situation. This bastard was almost certainly targeting the blueprints for the old street district. He just couldn't wrap his head around how Dong Nanfeng could be so audacious. This was a design personally vetted by Shen Yuxi, yet he still dared to harbor such greedy intentions, making such a splash right after joining the company. Your future is looking incredibly bright. Dong Nanfeng's tone suddenly shifted, becoming dead serious. However, once you step into the real world, the game follows a completely different set of rules. In school, as long as your grades are top tier, even if you ignore the teachers, you can still get into a prestigious university. But society is a different beast. It's all about the right timing, the right place, and the right people. Seeing Lin Yuan remain silent, Dong Nanfeng continued his pitch. In truth, I actually have high hopes for you. As long as you play your cards right, I can guarantee one thing. Your name will absolutely be on the permanent staff list. And it's not just about the promotion. We can even bump up your compensation package a bit. Lin Yuan just watched him with a faint knowing smile. He wondered exactly what playing his cards right entailed. Dong Nanfeng leaned in closer. It's simple, really. I just need you to tweak your design blueprints a little. Nothing major with the aesthetics. Just swap out the specified materials for others. And then head to President Shen's office to justify the change. That shouldn't be too difficult, right? Lin Yuan stared at the old fox. The man wanted him to compromise the material quality so he could naturally funnel business to his own corrupt suppliers. The sheer greed was sickening. Meanwhile, back in the main office, everyone was frantically gossiping about Lin Yuan being hauled off by the living Yama. Dong Nanfeng has been supervisor for 5 years, and he's already bought a luxury unit at Royal Court on a measly salary of 18,000 a month. Is it even possible to afford that in just 5 years? Regarding Dong Nanfeng's blatant embezzlement, everyone felt like they had swallowed a fly, absolutely disgusted. But since they were all at the bottom of the food chain, they were forced to swallow their rage in silence. However, while they couldn't confront him to his face, venting behind his back was always an option. Just as the gossip was reaching a fever pitch, a sudden knock echoed from the doorway. In walked Si Qingqing, clad in a sleek, professional white blazer dress. She was holding a classic black umbrella in her hand. "Excuse me, is Lin Yuan here?" There wasn't a soul in the company who didn't know who Si Qingqing was. Usually she only ever passed through their department. But today she was actually looking for someone. What was going on? First thing in the morning, the supervisor calls Lin Yuan, and now the CEO is looking for him too. Assistant Si Lin Yuan was summoned by Supervisor Dong. Si Qingqing offered a brief nod of thanks, then turned toward Dong Nanfeng's private office. Dong Nanfeng's office was tucked away at the very back of the design department. As Si Qingqing approached the door, she could faintly overhear the heated conversation inside. "Supervisor Dong, you're really putting me in a tight spot here. The materials I've specified in the plan offer the absolute best value for the money. Besides, that neighborhood is quite aged and run down. If those residents could actually afford high-end materials, they wouldn't be living there in the first place. That's a weak argument. They might not be able to buy new property, but that doesn't mean they can't afford a premium renovation." From Dong Nanfeng's increasingly impatient tone, it was clear he was completely dismissing Lin Yuan's logic. Lin Yuan gave a dry chuckle. "What you're describing is a luxury complex. Homes that go for 20,000 per square meter definitely exist. But you clearly haven't visited this specific site. The people living in that neighborhood are mostly retired seniors living on a budget, along with a small handful of young professionals just starting out. First of all, the elderly would never dream of spending a fortune on decor. 743, and for the ambitious young people, for those young hustlers grinding toward their dreams, the moment they save enough, they're going to move out. Those units are far too cramped. They simply aren't suitable for starting a family, which means for them, practicality and affordability are the top priorities. Truth be told, forcing designers to swap out materials was a dirty trick Dong Nanfeng had pulled countless times. However, usually a designer wouldn't dare lecture him like this. Lin Yuan had been testing his patience, rambling on for ages. Even a blockhead should have understood the hint by now. He was clearly doing this on purpose. If Dong Nanfeng weren't so desperate for cash lately, he wouldn't have pressured Lin Yuan to swap the specs. After all, this specific design was handpicked by Shen Yuxi. But his mother-in-law had a nasty car accident recently, and the hospital bills alone had already hit 6 figures. This urban renewal project was the perfect goldmine. The kickbacks from 2 whole buildings could net him a fortune. So, no matter what it took today, he had to force Lin Yuan to compromise on those materials. As for Lin Yuan, he was just some lucky kid with a flashy blueprint. A mere rookie who'd only been here for a month, actually daring to challenge his authority. Dong Nanfeng sneered with biting sarcasm. "My designer Lin certainly has quite the backbone, doesn't he?" Si Qingqing had originally come just to drop off the umbrella, never expecting to eavesdrop on such a scandalous exchange. She wanted to hear more, but knowing that spying would reflect poorly on her, she decided to knock firmly on the door. Hearing the sound, Supervisor Dong's face darkened as he glared at the glass door. The moment he realized it was the CEO's assistant, he scrambled to his feet. He beamed with artificial warmth. Assistant C. To what do I owe the honor of this visit? His desperate expression was like a neglected concubine, suddenly spotting the emperor. Si Qingqing gave a polite professional smile, her eyes drifting toward Lin Yuan, who remained coolly seated in his chair. President Shen asked me to deliver this umbrella to you. She paused for a second before adding, she also wants you to head to her office once you're finished here. She has something important to discuss with you. Now Dong Nanfeng was utterly flabbergasted. He adjusted his glasses, looking back and forth between Si Qingqing and Lin Yuan in pure disbelief. What the hell is going on? Why would the CEO personally send him an umbrella? And why tell him to visit when he's finished? When President Shen wants to see someone, it's usually a drop everything and get here now situation. Actually letting this kid finish his business first? As a veteran employee of 5 years, I've never seen anyone receive such preferential treatment, airport treatment. Lin Yuan reached out and took the umbrella, offering a polite grin as Si Qingqing finished her message. She shot one last meaningful look at Dong Nanfeng before turning on her heel and exiting the room. Staring intently at the umbrella in Lin Yuan's grip, Dong Nanfeng spiraled into deep anxious thought. Delivering documents or bonuses, he could understand that. But delivering an umbrella carried a much heavier implication. A leader providing shelter to an employee. Combined with his secret demand to swap the materials, Dong Nanfeng suddenly felt a chill of genuine terror. Right after you tried to pressure the kid, the CEO sends him a personal umbrella. Is this supposed to represent her protection? If that's really the case, then I'm absolutely screwed, aren't I? The more he overthought, the more paralyzed he became. Despite the winter chill, cold sweat began to bead on his forehead. Rather than watching Dong Nanfeng's grease-slicked face, Lin Yuan was far more curious about what the big sister CEO wanted with him now. God, please don't let it be about my mom secretly messaging her. I better get over there and handle this immediately. Thinking fast, Lin Yuan stood up abruptly. Supervisor Dong, I think we've said everything that needs to be said. I have things to do, so I'll be taking my leave. Leaving a stunned Dong Nanfeng behind, he headed straight for Shen Yushi's executive office. In the office today, Shen Yushi was rocking a sharp coffee-colored power suit, layered over a matching silk dress that flowed elegantly. With coffee-toned stilettos to complete the look, the vibe she radiated was pure unadulterated nobility. Her lustrous tea-colored hair was loosely swept up with a shimmering gold clip, softening the sharp professional edge of her suit. She looked incredibly sophisticated with a hint of effortless chic, composed refined and high class. When Si Qingqing had entered the office earlier, she found her boss sitting regally in her chair, silently observing Lin Yuan's interactions within the family group chat. An ice-cold female CEO lurking in an employee's family chat? No one in the world would ever believe it. President Shen, when I went to deliver the umbrella to Lin Yuan, I happened to overhear Dong Nanfeng pressuring him to swap materials. Hearing this, Shen Yushi froze for a split second. The playful spark in her eyes vanished in an instant. Swapping materials, really? Yes, straight-up material substitution. Shen Yushi reclined slowly against her executive chair, her stunning eyes darkening with a cold intensity, while her tone took on a dangerous, playful edge. To think such a thing is actually happening is sulk. It was clear she was oblivious to Dong Nanfeng's scheme of pocketing kickbacks through cheap material swaps. Yet judging by her composed expression, she didn't seem particularly shocked by the revelation. In a corporation of thousands, 50% are just coasting to collect a paycheck. 30% are merely putting on a show of hard work. Only 15% are truly grinding for results. And the remaining 5%, those are the Dong Nanfengs. The parasites who extort, demand, and manipulate, using every ounce of their authority to line their pockets. Shen Yushi understood this hierarchy perfectly. It was the common sickness of every major enterprise. But more than Dong Nanfeng's blatant corruption, Shen Yushi was focused entirely on Lin Yuan, this brilliant intern who happened to be her very own contract boyfriend. What path would he choose to take? And what was his response? Shen Yushi set her phone aside, her face lighting up with a look of genuine curiosity. He basically demanded that Lin Yuan change the specs. I suspect he has a whole network of shady material suppliers on speed dial. People like him should be fired immediately. He's a literal parasite feeding off the company. A total black sheep. Shen Yushi cut her off mid-sentence. I'm asking about Lin Yuan. Si Qingqing froze, her next words dying in her throat. She quickly shut her gaping mouth like a well-behaved child, leaving only her wide, startled eyes, staring at Shen Yushi in utter disbelief. In a crisis like this, shouldn't President Shen be decisively gathering evidence to crush Dong Nanfeng? Instead of auditing the villain she's asking about the intern, was her boss's moral compass spinning in the wrong direction? Regardless of her internal confusion, she didn't dare voice her doubts out loud. Si Qingqing blinked. Lin Yuan hadn't given his answer yet. I was spotted outside the door, and then I had to step into the office. After speaking, she feared Shen Yushi might blame her for not listening, so she nervously added another detail. But from the looks of it, Lin Yuan didn't seem willing to comply. Upon hearing that, Shen Yushi looked as if she had received the exact answer she wanted. A subtle trace of amusement danced in her eyes. This was the third time he had genuinely surprised her. The first was that blueprint. Even the company's most senior designers couldn't meet her rigorous standards. Lin Yuan didn't just meet them, he shattered expectations. The second time was when he rejected the luxury home she offered. Few could resist such a temptation, but he did. And now the third time, a fresh out of college intern actually dared to defy the orders of his superior. Is he truly not afraid of getting fired? Dong Nanfeng's corruption was entirely expected, but Lin Yuan's integrity was a breath of fresh air. It seemed this fake boyfriend didn't just have a high IQ, his moral character was also top tier. A sudden knock on the door broke Shen Yushi's train of thought. Lin Yuan walked into the room, carrying 2 cups of coffee. King shot a quick glance at Shen Yushi before turning and making her exit. President Shen, you wanted to see me. In truth, Shen Yushi had devised a master strategy to counter her mother's marriage pressure. That was exactly why she had summoned Lin Yuan today. Shen Yushi's mother was no ordinary woman. After years of psychological warfare, she knew every trick in the book. She locked eyes with Lin Yuan, leaning forward slightly, her porcelain white, elegant fingers intertwined, resting on the desk. Within those stunning eyes was a look of absolute seriousness. Sit down. Watching that intense expression, Lin Yuan couldn't help but feel a surge of nerves. My mother is a handful. She might do a surprise inspection, so I need some of your personal belongings. I'll provide the funds, and you'll go buy some new daily essentials. Find some time to drop them off at my place. Her tone remained clinical and professional, as if she were merely assigning a work task. Yet a stray lock of hair fell across her forehead, making her look unexpectedly gentle in that moment. The radiant morning light was currently illuminating her flawless porcelain face. From this specific vantage point, Lin Yuan could clearly perceive his own silhouette reflected within her striking pupils. It was undeniable. Whenever this woman gazed at him with such intensity, Lin Yuan's heart couldn't help but skip a frantic beat. Finishing the talk, Lin Yuan flashed a grin and headed out. Back in the main office, the entire crew was dying to know if Lin Yuan was even still alive. First, it was the living Yama Dong Nanfeng, then the icy President Shen herself. Neither of them was someone you'd ever want to cross. The frantic whispering only ceased when they spotted Lin Yuan clutching coffee in his left hand and an umbrella in his right, strolling back in as cool as a cucumber. Bro Lin, what did the CEO want with you? An umbrella? What's the hidden meaning behind the umbrella? Even if they couldn't quite wrap their heads around it, everyone sensed that this umbrella wasn't just an umbrella. I lent this to President Shen during the storm yesterday, and she simply returned it to me today. Once he offered that explanation, Xiaqiu let out the massive sigh of relief. So did the living Yama pressure you to swap the materials? Only a total moron would agree to that. I'm not budging. Lin Yuan replied without a second thought. Xiaqiu hadn't expected this kid to have such a backbone. Did that old devil not give you a hard time? Lin Yuan casually gestured with the coffee in his hand. Well, does this look like the face of someone who's being bullied? He then tossed one of the coffee containers over to Xiaqiu. This one's on me. I still prefer the taste of tea anyway. Staring down at the coffee in his hands, Xiaqiu was completely floored. Holy crap. That man is a notorious stingy bastard. Lin Yuan actually snatched this from him and gave it to you. Life was becoming increasingly surreal. Xiaqiu was spiraling, and the entire office was in a state of pure chaos. What in the literal hell is going on here? A 3-year veteran remarked that scoring anything for free from Dong Nanfeng was a historical first. Whatever was happening today was bordering on the supernatural and the bizarre. He refused to believe Dong Nanfeng would just let Lin Yuan slide, let alone bribe him with premium coffee. There's absolutely no way it's that simple. Lin Yuan hadn't anticipated his colleagues being this obsessively nosy. He let out a weary sigh, looking at the crowd with a face full of helplessness. Since you're also dying to know, I might as well just lay my cards on the table. I'll give it to you straight. President Shen is actually my girlfriend. What? Not only do you have a wild imagination, but you've actually got the guts to say it out loud. Xiaqiu was the first one to lose it. President Shen is a literal goddess-tier existence. In this company, aside from professional matters, she's never spared a second glance for any man. For a rookie to claim he's dating the CEO, even a 5-year veteran wouldn't have that kind of audacity. You better pray nobody else hears that nonsense. If that gossip reaches President Shen's ears, consider your mouth permanently sealed shut. This was no joke. They were dead serious. Who exactly is President Shen? She's the Ice Queen, the legendary female devil. She's such a frigid, untouchable person. If she found out Lin Yuan was using her name for a gag, she'd probably erase him from the company payroll instantly. After wasting half the morning on office drama, the clock suddenly struck 11:59. Only 60 seconds stood between them and the cafeteria feast. The moment the lunch break started, the family group chat exploded with activity again. Lin Yuan's sister, Lin Kiki, posted a shot of her lunch, a steaming beef clay pot, a golden chicken wing, and a cup of yogurt sitting right next to it. Sensing the smugness radiating from his sister's photo, Lin Yuan shot back, stuffing your face like that. Watch out, or you'll turn into a literal balloon. Oh, I wonder if my sister-in-law agrees with that tone. She finished the text by tagging Shen Yuxi. Lin Yuan cursed under his breath. Why does everything lead back to her? Before Shen Yuxi could even get a word in, his mother immediately jumped into the fray. What are you and Xiaoxi having for lunch today? Mom, I literally just clocked out for the break. We haven't even made it to the cafeteria yet. Fine. Once you get there, make sure to share a photo of your meal with us. She was determined to see it for herself. She was determined to see if her precious daughter-in-law was eating well. If the food sucked, she was ready to start cooking herself. Lin Yuan desperately wanted to slap himself across the face. Why didn't he just lie and say he was too busy to eat? Now he was backed into a corner, forced to actually grab lunch with the high and mighty Shen Yuxi. Was her ladyship even the type to step foot in a common cafeteria? While his mind raced through the possibilities, Lin Yuan shot a quick message over to Shen Yuxi. President Shen, how about I treat you to lunch? In reality, Shen Yuxi had been low-key lurking in the chat, just waiting for Lin Yuan to reach out to her. The moment his notification popped up, a smug, satisfied smirk played across her exquisite face. You treat me. Lin Yuan knew instantly this wasn't going to be a simple meal. This female demon was starting her mischief again. President Shen, I'm begging you. Reading Lin Yuan's desperate text, Shen Yuxi couldn't help but vividly imagine the sight of him groveling before her to admit his mistakes. Think you're a big shot, don't you? Get your butt to my office and give me a full report. Meanwhile, Si Qingqing, at that very moment, was busy arranging a spread of food on the office coffee table. Noticing Shen Yuxi was still glued to her phone, she spoke up with extreme caution. President Shen, your lunch is served and ready. Shen Yuxi didn't even look up as she commanded, get another set. Another set. Si Qingqing froze in her tracks, convinced that she must have misheard the request. President Shen, her behavior since last night had been nothing short of bizarre. A woman who usually barely finished half a meal now wanted double. Just then, Dong Nanfeng knocked and timidly entered the room. Shen Yuxi crossed her arms, leveling a freezing glare at the man standing before her. Instead of harassing the designers in your department, what business do you have with me? The moment the Ice Queen spoke, Dong Nanfeng felt the room's temperature drop by 10 degrees. Shaking with cold and pure panic, sweat began to pour from his palms and forehead simultaneously. President Shen, I am so sorry. My mother-in-law is critically ill, and I was truly at my wit's end. That's the only reason I considered swapping the materials. I swear I'll never do it again, never. You only don't dare because you got caught red-handed. If you wanted to swap materials, why not talk to the clients? Instead, you targeted the designer. Did you even stop to consider the consequences? If the client even catches wind of a blueprint change? Her voice was like a barrage of invisible blades, slicing through the air directly toward Dong Nanfeng. Dong Nanfeng was so terrified he nearly forgot to breathe. His legs were shaking like leaves in a storm. President Shen, please, I'm so sorry. I swear on my life it'll never happen again. I truly realized the gravity of my mistake. Shen Yuxi let out a soft, chilling chuckle, her elegant, mature voice echoing through the office. I don't do apologies. Those who mess up must pay the price. If I let one Dong Nanfeng slide today, 10 more will crawl out of the woodwork tomorrow. Dong Nanfeng gasped, the blood draining from his face, his mind reeling in a state of absolute shock. He was finished. He had elderly parents and young kids. His mother-in-law was currently bedridden in the hospital, and his child was about to start junior high. Bills were piling up from every single direction. As the sole breadwinner of the entire family, losing this job meant everyone at home would be left starving on the streets. Shen Yuxi was about to deliver the final blow when her phone began to vibrate insistently. In any other situation, nothing would stop Shen Yuxi from purging this corporate parasite immediately. But now, with the existence of Lin Yuan's family chat, she suddenly felt their messages took priority. She picked up her device and caught sight of Lin Yuan's latest text. Her slender fingers danced across the screen in response. Stop calling me President Shen in private. It'll be a disaster if you let that slip out of habit. Lin Yuan blinked, momentarily stunned, before letting out a long sigh of relief. Then from now on, I'll call you Xiaoxi like the others. Xiaoxi, it's time for lunch. Shen Yuxi sat frozen at her desk, her gorgeous almond-shaped eyes locked onto the phone screen for a long silent moment. She blinked slowly, a faint, awkward flush creeping onto her crimson lips. Comparing Xiaoxi to President Shen, one was strictly professional, while the other felt intimately strange. In the family chat, everyone was an elder. Naturally, it made sense for them to address her that way. But since she was 4 years older than Lin Yuan, shouldn't he technically be calling her big sister? Lin Yuan caught onto the vibe immediately. Fine then, from now on, I'll just call you Sister Shi. Meanwhile, Dong Nanfeng was still standing there groveling, feeling exactly like a death row inmate awaiting a final verdict. Whether I'm dead or alive, could you at least say something? But President Shen remained agonizingly silent. Not only did she refuse to speak, she continued to scroll through her phone with total nonchalance. He kept his eyes glued to Shen Yuxi, not even daring to take a single audible breath. As Shen Yuxi read the latest text from Lin Yuan, A faint, genuine smile finally crept onto her lips. That smile was like a lily blooming in the wild, pure breathtaking and radiant. Dong Nanfeng had never seen the CEO smile so authentically. It was stunning, sure, but at this very moment, his mind was drowning in his own corrupt mess, and his courage had completely evaporated. Shen Yushi pushed off slightly with her legs, leaning back into her executive chair to find a relaxed posture as she continued her chat with Lin Yuan. She completely ignored the trembling mess that was Dong Nanfeng standing right across from her. Sister Shi, what are you craving? You pick the place and I'll handle the bill. No need. Just come to my office to eat. Assistant Sai is already out grabbing lunch for you. The big sister really knows how to take care of business. After firing off a quick reply to Shen Yushi, Lin Yuan promptly exited his workspace and marched straight toward the elevators. Just as he reached the threshold of Shen Yushi's office, that icy, authoritative voice echoed from within. Pack up your pathetic belongings and get out. Dong Nanfeng desperately wanted to stay. This position was a goldmine. Between the elite benefits and the prestige, the perks were second to none. If he got booted from here, finding an equivalent gig would be next to impossible. President Shen Yushi leaned deeper into her chair, clearly done wasting her breath on him. She dismissed him with one final freezing glare. Dong Nanfeng opened his mouth to beg for mercy again, but then he remembered that cold, predatory look flashing in Shen Yushi's dangerous eyes. In the end, he didn't dare utter another word. He merely let out a defeated sigh, slumping his shoulders as he shuffled out. The moment he stepped out, he ran right into Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan watched his retreating figure, briefly feeling a flicker of pity for the man. But sympathy couldn't change reality. A wrong is a wrong. No sob story could justify his blatant corruption. In Lin Yuan's eyes, it wasn't a loss to see someone like this get the boot. Still, one had to admit, the big sister's CEO's execution was terrifyingly swift. From the moment the issue surfaced, barely 2 hours had passed, and the man was already history. Lin Yuan took a sharp, deep breath. It seemed that, for his own safety, he should probably avoid getting on her bad side. As soon as Lin Yuan entered, the icy sharpness in Shen Yushi's eyes vanished, replaced by a soft, captivating glimmer. She gestured toward the dishes spread across the coffee table. The rice will be here in a moment. Just hold on a second. Lin Yuan nodded in acknowledgement. He finally cast a proper glance at the spread on the table, and his entire jaw nearly hit the floor. Vegetable salad, chilled cucumber, sautéed greens and sweet and sour lotus fruit, plenty of dishes, but not a single trace of meat anywhere. How is anyone supposed to eat this? Seeing Lin Yuan dazed, Shen Yushi asked, not to your taste. It wasn't just not to his taste. It was practically impossible to even start. He desperately wanted to ask her big sister, exactly when did you take your vows and join the temple? Does this rabbit food really suit a multimillionaire like you? The lunch is great, but let's not do this again, Lin Yuan sighed, taking a seat at the coffee table anyway. It was Shen Yushi's turn to be confused. It's great, so why shouldn't we do it again? She was completely baffled by the weirdly mixed signals Lin Yuan was throwing out. Before she could dwell on it, there was a knock at the door. Si King had returned with the extra food. She stepped into the office, her eyes instinctively darting toward the coffee table. In a split second, her eyes bulged wider than brass bells. Shen Yushi hadn't expected such a dramatic reaction from Si Qing, leaving her caught between a laugh and a sigh. She quirked an eyebrow, shooting a faint icy glare. Is there a problem? Si King was internally screaming. She had always assumed that a woman like President Shen would only date some kind of legendary overbearing CEO. Only a true alpha mogul could possibly match President Shen's frigid elite soul. She never in a million years imagined it would be this rookie intern Lin Yuan. Her impression of him was just a modest guy with a constant grin, who occasionally cracked jokes like a total goofball. That kind of laid-back energy doesn't even belong in the same universe as a CEO, okay? Does the boss really have a thing for this type? This is beyond mind-blowing. It's practically surreal. Seeing her assistant frozen in place, Shen Yuxi's mature, cool voice took on a playful edge. What are you just standing there for? Waiting for me to treat you to lunch? This Si Qing was always so easily rattled, hardly acting like a professional executive assistant. Hearing that, Si Qing waved her hands frantically. Enjoy your meal, ma'am. I'm heading out right now. With that, she scrambled out of the office in a blurred rush. There was no way she wanted to dine with the CEO anyway. President Shen had been obsessed with her figure lately, eating like a literal rabbit. Si King was a professional foodie, not a herbivore. She'd caught a glimpse of the menu while getting the food, and the cafeteria was serving braised pork hock today. The moment Si Qing vanished, the sprawling high-end office was left with only Lin Yuan and Shen Yushi. Shen Yushi glided over to the sofa beside Lin Yuan, crossing her long, elegant legs with effortless grace. She picked up the chopsticks Si Qing had meticulously set out. With a delicate movement of her slender, pale fingers, she gracefully lifted a small slice of tomato and popped it into her mouth, her crimson lips beginning to move in a slow, rhythmic chew. Watching the beauty eat, Lin Yuan found himself swallowing hard. It wasn't because he was craving the food. He literally had no idea how to approach this feast. How the hell am I supposed to eat this? Lin Yuan couldn't help but ask out of curiosity, Sister Shi, is this rabbit food really your daily diet? I haven't had much time to hit the gym lately, so I have to eat light to maintain my figure. Shen Yuxi finished her sentence while picking up another cherry tomato. Lin Yuan was utterly floored. Good grief. She's already so lean, yet she's still dieting. It was genuinely shocking. Shen Yuxi's physique was actually flawless. Standing at 1.7 meters with a slender neck and perfect horizontal shoulders, there wasn't a single gram of excess fat on her arms. Her wasp-like waist looked small enough to wrap one's hands around, complemented by legs that were incredibly long and straight. Moreover, her complexion was absolutely divine. Silky porcelain white, and so supple it looked like it would glow at a touch. And a woman like this still thinks she needs to lose weight? Shen Yuxi, noticing the exaggerated look of disbelief plastered across his face, was successfully amused. Her mature feminine voice carried a hint of delight. Flattery won't earn you a salary increase, you know. She had to admit this little puppy subordinate certainly knew how to compliment. It seemed her image in his heart was quite elevated. Health is the foundation of any revolution, Lin Yuan retorted, while a good figure is just a bonus. After speaking, he glanced once more at the sea of green vegetables on the table. I'm going to go grab some chicken drumsticks. She might not eat them, but he definitely needed his protein. Lin Yuan stood up decisively and bolted out of the CEO's office. He was on a mission for those drumsticks. Lunch without meat was practically a crime against humanity. Staring at Lin Yuan's retreating back, a flicker of helplessness danced in Shen Yushi's bright eyes. We were just starting to eat. Where is he rushing off to now? The moment he cleared the CEO's office door, Lin Yuan made a beeline for the first floor cafeteria. He grabbed 2 massive chicken drumsticks, then spotted a tray of succulent braised pork trotters. He couldn't resist adding a serving of those to his haul. Drumsticks plus pork trotters. Now that's a feast, thinking of Shen Yuxi's weight loss obsession. He also snagged a bottle of yogurt on his way out. Balancing his freshly loaded plate, he dashed back toward the executive office at top speed. With Lin Yuan gone, Shen Yuxi had simply stopped using her chopsticks altogether. Instead, she returned to her desk to review some documents. She hadn't even flipped 2 pages before Lin Yuan's voice rang out, Sister Shi, check this out, the cafeteria's drumsticks are legendary. Since it was the dead of winter and the temperature was dropping, Lin Yuan sprinted back so the meat wouldn't get cold. Entering the room, he looked slightly out of breath, with his sharp buzz-cut framing a forehead, beaded with a fine layer of glistening sweat. He was clutching 2 disposable takeout boxes, beaming at her with a bright, contagious grin. When this clean-cut, energetic guy looked at her, his entire face radiated pure, genuine warmth. Shen Yuxi froze for a fleeting moment. So he had rushed off like a madman, just to fetch her some chicken drumsticks. This puppy-type guy actually knows how to be attentive. It's just food. Why on earth were you in such a frantic rush? Her face remained a mask of icy indifference, yet her porcelain white hand reached for the tissue box and pulled one out, extending it toward him, along with the tissue. The unique, intoxicating scent of Shen Yuxi wafted over. Studies have shown that smelling a fragrance you adore instinctively triggers relaxation and a boost in mood. Lin Yuan felt that research was spot on. This was the second time he had caught her scent. It wasn't some generic, heavy perfume, but a delicate, ethereal floral aroma, like a blend of fresh lilies and jasmine, faint yet hauntingly present. Lin Yuan was absolutely captivated by that scent. He took the tissue from her with a carefree air, but as their fingertips brushed against each other, he could clearly feel the incredible softness of her skin. They both settled back onto the sofa. Lin Yuan picked up his chopsticks, grabbed a drumstick, and placed it right into Shen Yuxi's bowl. Listen, boss. This drumstick is a certified cafeteria banger. Because he had hauled ass, the chicken was still piping hot and steaming. Lin Yuan felt a surge of triumph over that. He then unceremoniously dropped the other one into his own bowl. With the drumstick situation handled, Lin Yuan slid the bottle of yogurt over to Shen Yuxi. Yogurt is the ultimate hack for weight loss. It revs up your metabolism and digestion. Staring at the yogurt and the drumstick in her bowl, a strange, unfamiliar sensation began to ripple through her heart. His concern was purely genuine and sincere. Not some desperate attempt to flatter her, nor a calculated move to suck up to the boss. It was just like the elders in his family chat, natural, honest, and completely effortless. It felt incredibly comforting. She hadn't expected this carefree boy to have such a thoughtful side, breaking a sweat just so she could eat a hot meal, and remembering she was dieting. By specifically bringing back yogurt, as she watched him, Yuxi felt a sudden, inexplicable sense of beauty. He was at the peak of his youth, had flawless skin, was handsome and clearly talented. Logically, someone like him should be a total magnet for girls. So why on earth was he still single? Shen Yuxi's brow arched slightly as she eyed Lin Yuan with genuine curiosity. Why don't you have a girlfriend? Lin Yuan swallowed a mouthful of rice before responding. That's a heavy question. Why don't you date anyone? Shen Yuxi was taken aback that he flipped the question on her. She replied coolly, dating inevitably leads to marriage. And marriage is essentially just a high-stakes gamble. Statistically speaking, 9 out of 10 gamblers lose. I don't like those odds. Lin Yuan didn't hesitate for a second. Well, my reason isn't nearly as deep as yours. The truth is, nobody wants to date me. He finished speaking and stuffed a piece of pork trotter into his mouth. Having poured his soul into international competitions right after graduation, his only grievance was that there weren't enough hours in the day. Who has time for a relationship? The answer was so raw and blunt that Shen Yuxi couldn't help herself. She let out a sudden, spontaneous burst of laughter. Watching her expression soften, the starlight dancing in her seductive eyes, and the ripples of a smile on her crimson lips, Lin Yuan felt as though the temperature in the entire office had surged. She was truly genuinely happy in that moment. But seriously, can you tell me what's so hilarious? You're laughing with such brutal honesty that it's actually getting a bit awkward, okay? Glancing at Lin Yuan's resentful little pout, Shen Yuxi managed to suppress her giggles. I just didn't expect the reason to be so straightforward. To think a guy this talented would be totally unwanted. I mean, I've barely been out of school for long. It's the prime of my youth, for crying out loud. Why is my mom in such a frantic rush? If I don't get married right this second, she acts like I've somehow betrayed 8 generations of our ancestors. Speaking of which, Shen Yuxi's brow arched. Oh right, we haven't even taken the proof photo yet. She hurriedly snatched up her smartphone. How could she forget such a mission-critical detail? She swiftly navigated her way into the family group chat and snapped a decisive photo of the meal to post. Su Kuifan had been camping out for Shen Yuxi's message for over half an hour already. The moment her phone chimed, she abandoned the dishes, ripped off her gloves, and lunged for the device. Sure enough, her daughter-in-law had finally spoken. She eagerly tapped on the thumbnail to enlarge it, but the more she stared, the more suspicious she became. The 2 meals were placed way too far apart. Logically, during the peak of the honeymoon phase, couples are usually inseparable, practically sharing a plate. Yet in this photo, one tray was in the far left corner, and the other was shoved to the far right. This was undeniable proof they were sitting miles apart. Meanwhile, Lin Yuan saw that Shen Yuxi had posted, so he set down his chopsticks as well. He grabbed his phone, anticipating his mom's reaction. Usually the second Shen Yuxi said a single word, within 3 seconds flat, his mother would provide a lightning-fast reply. But today, not a peep for over 30 seconds. His gut told him something had gone horribly wrong. He frantically opened the photo Shen Yuxi had sent. One look was all it took to spot the fatal flaw. Don't let his mom's casual exterior fool you. Whenever it involved his marital status, her intuition became as sharp as a surgical needle. This photo is a total disaster, he muttered. Lin Yuan gave Shen Yuxi a quick breakdown of the error, even managing to accurately predict exactly how his mother was overanalyzing the situation. After hearing Lin Yuan's expert explanation, Shen Yuxi also realized things weren't looking right. So what do we do now? Unless we send a candid, intimate photo of us together, we can't make up for that blunder. It was just that this request was hard for him to voice. Shen Yuxi gazed at Lin Yuan. He was currently staring at his phone, racking his brain for a solution. How about we send a photo of us holding hands? That should fix the problem, right? Let's just do a hand-holding shot. She sat down beside Lin Yuan without a moment's hesitation. As a wave of her intoxicating fragrance washed over him, Shen Yuxi's elegant, mature voice rang out. Give me your hand. Lin Yuan froze for a second, blinking his eyes instinctively. Although he had just been thinking about taking President Shen's hand, now that it was actually happening, he felt a surge of panic. He blinked again and obediently extended his hand. The next second, Shen Yuxi's cool arm was linked intimately with his own. Her slender porcelain white hand slid up his forearm, finally coming to rest within his palm. Then her fingers subtly intertwined with his. The big sister's palm was slightly chilled, but the skin on the back of her hand was incredibly tender and soft. Holding a hand like this, Lin Yuan's heart rate began to skyrocket uncontrollably. Aside from holding his little sister's hand as a kid, he had never held another woman's hand before. Don't let Shen Yuxi's bold initiative fool you. Inside, her heart was racing like a frantic drum. Even her voice carried a hint of nervous tension. This was, after all, the first time she had held a man's hand, especially when he gripped back with a bit of strength. That solid, overwhelming sense of security was wrapped in a hidden electric thrill. Lin Yuan grabbed his phone and decisively clicked the shutter. The entire process was smooth and seamless. In the photo, the man's hand completely enveloped the girl's fair, slender fingers, radiating a powerful, protective vibe. With lunch as the background, it added a touch of warmth to a sunny day. Lin Yuan was extremely satisfied with the shot. He held the phone up in front of Shen Yuxi. Aren't my photography skills top tier? Shen Yuxi, her face flushed crimson, feigning absolute composure as she glared at Lin Yuan. Could you maybe let go before you keep talking? Is he addicted to this? Why hasn't he released my hand yet? I froze for a second, instinctively glancing down at my own grip. Whoops, still holding on. Wait, sister. Let me explain. Suddenly, the phone vibrated. I quickly let go to check. See? I told you I knew exactly how my mom would react. Su Kuifan had indeed replied, you brat. Don't just focus on stuffing your own face. Make sure you take good care of Xiaoxi. Seeing Su Kuifin's supportive message, they both felt a wave of relief wash over them. Perhaps it was because of that lingering physical contact, but a trace of awkwardness now hung heavy in the air. Neither of them uttered another word, simply picking up their chopsticks to finish the meal. Just as they were wrapping up lunch, Shen Yushi's phone erupted with a ringtone. The caller ID flashed a single word, Mom. The moment she answered the call, I could clearly perceive within her gorgeous eyes a flicker of pure exhausted helplessness. I kept my mouth shut and continued eating. Your father said, if you plan on living like this forever, just be honest with us sooner rather than later. We'll go ahead and adopt 2 children for you, so you'll have someone to care for you in your old age. That way, at the very least, there will be an heir for the Shen family legacy. Even if you never get married, we'll make sure you have a complete family. The voice on the other end was a middle-aged woman, her tone exceptionally polite, and her voice gentle. Yet the weight of her words was incredibly sharp. I couldn't help but marvel internally. This big sister's mom is even more ruthless than my own. If you don't have a boyfriend, she'll just adopt kids for you. That is absolutely terrifying. Shen Yushi seemed to have become completely numb to this brand of marriage pressure. Her expression didn't even flicker. She simply replied coolly, if you want to adopt, I won't object to that. I'll just explain it to my boyfriend later, that they're actually my father's secret love children. Rumors are lethal, so he asked me to raise them in secret. Besides, the Shen family is a massive empire. It wouldn't be shocking if he had illegitimate kids. Her tone was as casual as if she were discussing the weather. I nearly sprayed my mouthful of rice across the room. The person on the other end of the line seemed completely unfazed by her icy attitude. This bickering clearly wasn't their first rodeo. However, the voice paused. I'm shocked you actually have a boyfriend. Shen Yushi shot a fleeting glance toward Lin Yuan. I do, she stated, her face a mask of indifference. The person on the phone was clearly skeptical. This isn't another one of your self-directed plays to dodge us? Setting up some fake burner account? Just to trick us in the chat, is it? Let me tell you, you can't hide the truth forever. Experience always wins. So is he real? Come back home and you'll see for yourself. I'm swamped with work. Gotta go. Shen Yushi hung up with zero hesitation. Just based on that one phone call, I could bet my life that this auntie is a formidable opponent. I tentatively opened my mouth. Sister Shi, was that your mom? Shen Yushi nodded, clearly still simmering in the frustration of that conversation. You heard everything, so why bother asking? She stood up, grabbed a glass of water, and walked to the window. So this is the real reason. I needed you to bring your clothes over. And it's not just about the clothes. We have to fabricate the perfect illusion of cohabitation. I swallowed hard, my throat feeling dry. So, if they actually show up, are we really going to live together? Shen Yushi crossed her arms, her gaze filled with absolute certainty. Exactly. Ever since I mentioned cohabitation in the family chat, I've had a massive headache from the regret. I never expected the big sister to pull the same stunt. My mind involuntarily drifted into a wild fantasy about living with her. Imagine the big sister in a silk nightgown giving me a massage, all while whispering in that sultry, mature voice. Realizing my thoughts were veering off track, I snapped back to reality immediately. See, King had just finished her lunch and returned. She originally intended to check if the CEO was done eating so she could clear away the leftover dinnerware. She never expected that just as she reached the door, President Shen's voice would drift through. I'll drop the address to your phone. Make sure you head over tonight. Don't be late after we clock out. See, King's face turned a vibrant shade of crimson instantly. Holy crap, isn't this progress a bit too fast? It's only been a day and they're already meeting tonight. If they keep up this crazy pace for 2 more days, President Shen will be heading off on maternity leave. While she was still spiraling in shock, she caught sight of me stepping out of the office. See, King face still burning, forced out a painfully awkward expression. Times have certainly changed. This guy is officially President Shen's boyfriend now. If he decides he doesn't like her attitude, President Shen might just replace her in a heartbeat. She'd have nowhere to go to cry about it. I looked at her, feeling stuck between a laugh and a sigh. I wanted to explain the situation, but it felt like there was nothing left to say. In cases like this, explaining just makes you look guiltier. Returning to the design department, it was nearly deserted. Hardly a soul was around. I took my seat and logged onto the International Design portal. After signing in, I clicked the registration tab and a message popped up. Congratulations on your successful entry. The competition officially commences on December 18th. Looks like I'm officially in the running. The 18th, that gives me exactly 2 weeks. As I was exiting the interface, I suddenly noticed my notification bell was blowing up. I had over 90 unread alerts. I clicked through them and realized that some random person had left a comment on a blueprint I posted a while back, openly provoking me. The antagonist went by the handle Pastoral Song, a designer with a pretty massive following. Basically a minor design influencer. Pastoral Song, I'll be blunt. This piece is absolute hot garbage in my eyes. It lacks any soul or unique character. It completely fails to capture the essence of minimalism. This entire aesthetic is just painfully mediocre. Attached was an image depicting the same minimalist theme as my own blueprint. Beneath it, a flood of comments erupted. Little Ching, I honestly think God Yuan's design is superior. It fits the market perfectly. Design is harder than climbing to heaven. Pastoral Song's work feels like the touch of a true grandmaster. Compared to that, God Yuan's piece is just there. It's completely devoid of any unique flair. Don't Speak is this true pastoral song? Just clout chasing off God Yuan's viral status. Hickey Fart, what a load of absolute garbage. Do you have any idea how many followers Song has? As if he needs to chase clout. The pastoral army is here to shut you down. As for this designer, Pastoral Song, I actually knew exactly who he was. He had a decent following of over 70,000. Don't underestimate those numbers. On this specific platform, tens of thousands is a massive flex. In truth, that particular blueprint was just a casual sketch of mine, specifically crafted to satisfy the basic minimalist cravings of most clients. Nowadays, for modern living, the vast majority of people opt for a clean, simple vibe. My specific design was focused entirely on maximizing living space. While maintaining that minimalist look, it actually carves out several extra square meters of room. In a city where every inch of real estate costs a fortune, a design like this is practically a godsend. Many commenters recognized the genius of my layout, but just as many felt that pastoral Song's draft truly pushed the concept of minimalism to its absolute limit. I didn't really care about the fan wars in the comments. It usually just boils down to a difference in personal style. However, I had a massive bone to pick with Song's masterpiece. Despite the title explicitly claiming minimalism, his actual design was a rugged industrial retro style that had nothing to do with it. Specifically that kitchen entrance, using a semicircular exposed brick archway, walls finished in brushed raw concrete, and a floor made of cold unpolished cement. Honestly, throw in a couple of lit torches, and you could roast wild game right there on the floor. I couldn't resist dropping a comment, look buddy, forgetting the fact that you totally missed the prompt. Did you even consider how a human being is supposed to live there? Are we regressing into monkeys now? I honestly cannot get behind this. Calling this design a stroke of genius, a stroke of insanity is more like it. Design isn't just about superficial aesthetics. It's primarily about prioritizing the tenant's convenience. That circular doorway is an ergonomic nightmare. You'd have to hunch over every time. How is that not incredibly stifling? But enough venting for now. I decided to draft a brand new blueprint myself to rectify the shortcomings of my previous work. I shut the browser, grabbing a pencil to start a quick conceptual sketch. By now, the rest of the team had returned from lunch. At 1:30 p.m., the office was a buzz of chatter. Scrolling phones, gossiping, just killing time. Jacques glanced over and saw me hunched over the desk with a pencil, looking intensely focused. He couldn't contain his curiosity. Hey, little Lin, what are you up to? In this high-tech era, countless design softwares exist that make drafting infinitely more efficient than manual work. Everything is perfectly symmetrical and precise. Most designers just jump straight to the computer. However, I still prefer sketching on paper first, polishing the vision before digitizing it. Lin Yuan still had a deep passion for hand drawing. It felt like drafting an essay. Before finalizing the answers on the exam sheet. Just got an itch to doodle, I replied casually, my hand never missing a beat on the paper. Hearing that I was actually drawing by hand Xia Qiu was absolutely floored. No way you're actually hand sketching. Software gets this done in 3 minutes flat. But doing it by hand will take an hour. Plus revisions are a total nightmare. And it'll never look as clean as a digital render. Word that I was still using old school methods spread. It wasn't just Xia Qiu. Everyone entering the room was stunned. For real? Brother Yuan, you're still hand drawing. Xiao Wang adjusted his glasses, muttering as he drifted over toward my desk. He clearly wanted to see what I was cooking up. After all, I had crushed a project on my first day. I was the only one who had ever managed to overshadow a top-tier designer's blueprint. He was genuinely eager to study my work, hoping to pick up some professional tips and tricks. Seeing Xiao Wang approach, I smirked. What's up? Trying to steal my secrets, I said openly, showing him the draft. In reality, it was just a rough conceptual sketch. Aside from the basic layout of the house, you couldn't really discern much of anything. He frowned. I can't tell what's going on here. Well, obviously, I shot back. I haven't even started the actual design phase yet. What exactly were you expecting to see? Can't see it. This is what you call peak minimalism. I joked. Xiao Wang shook his head, answering with total deadpan seriousness, not even close. Eavesdropping on our banter. Jacques' curiosity was piqued as well, and he sauntered over. He wanted to see this minimalism that baffled Xiao Wang. One quick look at the paper, and he rolled his eyes at me. Give it a rest. Stop messing with Xiao Wang. This is just a floor plan. How is anyone supposed to see the style in this? I chuckled. By the way, Brother Xia, do you ever browse the Hardships site? Hardships was a local slang for the International Design Portal, since its English name literally translated to that. Xia Qiu was a seasoned veteran in the industry. There was no way he didn't follow the portal. He gave a sly grin. Why? Trying to trick me into becoming one of your fanboys. I teased him back. Actually, that's a great idea. How about you become my #1 fan? Of course, it was all just lighthearted office talk. Even the legendary elite designers on that site only had about 100,000 followers. However, my account had only been active for a little over a month, and I was already sitting at over 70,000 fans. It's clear that plenty of designers vibe with my vision. At the mention of the portal, young Shaolin, who was scrolling his phone, suddenly perked up. He looked at everyone with intense excitement. Oh right, speaking of the portal, two heavyweights were totally going at it last night. The legendary God Yuan and Pastoral Song are duking it out. To be precise, Pastoral Song just threw major shade at God Yuan. Don't let my casual vibe fool you. The moment design is mentioned, I'm instantly laser focused. Looking at Shaolin, his eyes were practically sparkling with tea. So what's your take on Pastoral Song's latest draft? That blueprint is honestly on a whole different level. Shaolin curled his lip, as if envisioning Song's masterpiece right in front of him. I felt the tiny spark of hope I had just ignited instantly flicker and die out. Then God Yuan actually fired back with a reply. It looks like a clash of the titans is officially underway. Even Chen Kexin sitting at the back joined the fray. She had just been doom scrolling through the portal herself. Spotting God Yuan's direct rebuttal to Pastoral Song sent her excitement levels through the roof. You have to understand, Pastoral Song is one of the celebrity designers over at Chen Shin's firm. We're talking about a guy who commands $1,000 per square meter. Out of 10 clients, 9 of them explicitly demand Wumu. The sales department has basically worshipped him into godhood. Too bad this designer Wu has a legendary ego and a nasty habit of trash talking everyone. Consequently, he's pretty much a loner in the industry. The only person who can stand him is probably his fellow elite designer Nan Huan. Pastoral Song is seriously a beast. The guy is a literal textbook for us. I'd give anything to reach his level one day. One by one, the praise started pouring in, everyone expressing their admiration for Pastoral Song. It wasn't all genuine, of course, but since he's a grandmaster designer whose work makes clients throw money at him, there must be a method to his madness, right? If you dared to say you hated his work, it would basically be outing yourself as a total design noob. Who wants to be the office laughingstock? To avoid looking like they didn't know their craft. Everyone pretended to love it even if they didn't. It's like an answer key provided by a professor. How could it possibly be wrong? Clearly, in the eyes of everyone here, Wumu held the status of a supreme mentor. Scanning the room full of nodding, agreeable faces, my eyes widened in utter disbelief. My dear seniors, are you seriously telling me you vibe with that trashy design? Brother Lin, to be honest, I still believe God Yuan's vision is superior. Xiao Wang looked at me with a face full of earnest conviction. While the group was deep in discussion, Wumu and Nan hand strolled in from the outside. The elite designers had posh private offices, but to reach them, they had to cut right through this communal workspace. Spotting the man himself, Pastoral Song Xiaqiu hurriedly raised his voice for all to hear. Xiao Wang, since when did you have such poor taste? Brother Mu is the literal idol of everyone in this firm. Xiaqiu was a seasoned fox, a social butterfly, who made sure never to offend a soul. He deliberately aimed those words at Wumu's ears, just to farm some easy brownie points. However, he didn't expect me to double down. I shrugged, a look of pure disdain crossing my face. All I can say is, old Sia's taste in design has completely drifted away from mainstream logic. You call that minimalism? Calling it returning to the Stone Age is more accurate. My words were dripping with heavy sarcasm. This was the very first time Wumu had ever heard anyone in the company trash talk his blueprints like that, especially coming from a rookie intern. He shot me a glacial, soul-piercing glare. And where exactly do you find fault with my design? Everyone sensed the lethal condescension in Wumu's tone. Xiaqiu panicked. Shaolin panicked. The entire room was on edge. Xiaqiu truly never imagined I would suddenly drop a bombshell like that. If he'd known, he wouldn't have said a word to save his life. He wanted to build rapport, but this turned into a total social train wreck. It looked as if he had incited a war on purpose. Wumu was indeed a formidable designer, and he came from a very wealthy background. His father and Shen Yushi's father were close associates. He'd joined Chen Xing right after graduation, and even a fool could see he was thirsty for President Shen. Word was President Shen had even thrown a massive fit with her family over this guy. For some unknown reason, she eventually gave in, and the very next day, Wumu started working here smoothly. But despite being in the same office, the two of them barely exchanged a single word. Even though President Shen hasn't shown a shred of interest in him, everyone in the office is painfully aware that Wumu is not someone to be trifled with. If even the CEO can't seem to rein him in, who would dare provoke him? Shaolin quickly cut in, Designer Wu. I actually happen to have a blueprint right here that I'd love for you to take a quick look at. Should I bring it over to you right now? Wumu, who never gave the low-level designers in the bullpen the time of day, completely ignored him. He didn't just snub Shaolin's request. He didn't even grant the poor guy a passing glance. His sharp brows twitched, and his narrow eyes locked onto me like a predator. Well, Lin Yuan, did you actually analyze that draft? Wumu replied with a chilling indifference. I've seen it. The second we started talking shop, I was locked in, dead serious and strictly professional. I looked Wumu dead in the eye, regarding that kitchen, using a cramped arched doorway like that completely ignores the reality of daily use. That's strike one. Strike two. For small-scale apartments, a dry-wet separation in the bathroom is the gold standard. Yet he scrapped the partition just to save space. To make matters worse, he threw in a wooden bathtub. Sure, it looks aesthetically pleasing and gives a superficial sense of openness, but it creates a catastrophic problem: massive long-term moisture accumulation. Beyond the inevitable bacterial breeding ground, it will rot the wooden fixtures in no time. Wumu's brow furrowed deep, his expression turning remarkably sour. He remembered this guy. His name was Lin Yuan. He'd only produced a single decent community layout and got a few crumbs of praise from Shen Yuxi. But looking at him now, he seemed to genuinely look down on Wumu's expertise. It's a big world, but some people really have no self-awareness. To think a nobody dared to question his masterpiece. It was beyond laughable. If design isn't for beauty, what is it for? Bacteria concerns. Material durability. In Wumu's mind, Lin Yuan was the one with the problem. I honestly find it impossible to support Pastoral Song's flawed design logic. I feel like I could easily pinpoint 3, maybe even 5 more critical flaws in this work. I had so much to say that my mouth started firing off like a high-speed Gatling gun, literally causing Xiaqiu to break out in a cold sweat. This rookie is seriously fearless. Can he see Wumu's murderous glare? And he's still going, seeing me about to drop more truth bombs. Xiaqiu was practically dripping with anxiety. Listen here, little Lin. I recall you having a project that's still unfinished. Time is ticking, get to it. Xiaolin also jumped in to back him up. Exactly. Pastoral Song is a legend. He thinks on a level far beyond us. I've analyzed this design and it's absolute perfection. A literal masterpiece. You should focus on your own blueprints. Securing that permanent position is what actually matters. If this continued, someone's life was definitely on the line. Wumu eyed me with icy contempt. You're a fan of that God Yuan guy, aren't you? That toxic mouth of yours is the spitting image of your idol. Nan Huan was just talking about that God Yuan character, calling him a brainless hack, whose houses were designed for primates. As a high-profile designer with a reputation, having someone speak to him like this was beyond insulting. That's not quite it. His work actually does have a few minor issues. It feels like he didn't put his full heart into several areas. Lin Yuan was just being brutally honest. Back when he released that particular piece, it was honestly just a casual sketch. He hadn't bothered with revisions or conducted any deep research into it. Looking back at it now, that blueprint did indeed have some slight imperfections. But compared to Pastoral Song's mess, they weren't even issues. He was just that confident in his own craftsmanship. Wumu originally assumed he was just a hardcore God Yuan fanboy. He could almost excuse the attitude if it was blind loyalty. But hearing this response, he couldn't help but sneer. A mere intern critiquing two master designers. The sheer arrogance is truly staggering. He flashed a look of pure disdain before storming off toward his private office. I stood there completely bewildered, just thinking that this Master Wu was a bit off in the head. Glancing back at the frantic faces of Xia Qiu and Xiaolin, I couldn't help but wonder what's gotten into you two. It was just a casual design debate with a pro. Why are you both trembling like leaf? Xiaolin wiped the cold sweat from his neck. You're seriously something else, man. Do you even have a clue who Wumu is? I froze. It was just a technical discussion about a blueprint. What does his identity have to do with anything? Among colleagues, it should be normal to critique someone's work and share different perspectives. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Xiaqiu let out a heavy, weary sigh. His face twisted into a look of pure exasperation that looked exactly like a forced smile meme. Wumu is Pastoral Song himself. Shocked by the revelation, my pupils dilated in sudden realization as I stared at Wumu's retreating back. I'm cooked. I am absolutely cooked. Now it all finally made sense. Why the entire office was glazing Pastoral Song. Turns out the legendary Song was a coworker. What kind of snake colleagues am I working with? You should have warned me. This is a total setup. I grumbled, but honestly, I didn't expect your mouth to be that fast. Xiaqiu was equally depressed. Complaints aside, let's be real, that blueprint was eyesore. Even if I had known he was Pastoral Song beforehand, at most, I would have been slightly more tactful. Actually, scratch that. Praising that trash is impossible. Meanwhile, Shen Yuxi sat at her massive executive desk, warm sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Resting her chin on one hand, her gaze was fixed intently on the computer screen. Shen Yuxi was a design major herself, and her choice to enter this industry was driven purely by her own passion. She frequently scouted for inspiration on the portal, applauding designs that truly resonated with her and feeling moved by their brilliance. Conversely, she'd swiftly scroll past any garbage work, unwilling to waste even a second of her time. The moment she logged onto the site today, she saw God Yuan's work being targeted by Pastoral Song in a massive, spectacular showdown. Both fanbases were ruthlessly tearing into each other. A single post was racking up hundreds of thousands of hits. That is seriously terrifying. The moment Shen Yuqi witnessed the chaos, her entire mood soured instantly. Her eyes clouded with a mix of disgust and sheer helplessness. Her intuition screamed at her that damn Woomoo was up to his old tricks again. Woomoo constantly wore a mask of arrogant self-importance. The primary reason Shen Yuxi felt zero attraction toward him was his absolute trash personality. He was excessively pretentious and incredibly self-centered. Trading even a single sentence with that man was enough to trigger a wave of extreme nausea. If it hadn't been for her father promising that if she kept Woomoo on the payroll, he'd inject 30 million in funding into her firm, she'd never have let such a person darken her doorstep. His most insufferable habit was constantly snooping through her account's browsing history. Whenever she liked a particular post, he would inevitably go to that person's account to start a riot. He was like a toxic stalker fan, the kind that makes your teeth itch with pure rage. And my design happened to be the one she liked 2 days ago. Truth be told, Shen Yuxi genuinely admired this designer known as God Yuan. From the very first blueprint of his she laid eyes on, she knew this person was a rare once-in-a-generation genius. She had even secretly posed as an HR recruiter to send him 2 job offers, but he had completely ghosted her. She figured such a legendary designer was just too proud, believing only massive public corporations were worthy of his talent. It was only natural he'd look down on a firm like Chen Xing. When this sort of drama happened in the past, those other designers usually just ignored Woomoo, choosing the high road of total silence. So usually things remained relatively calm. But this time it was a completely different story. This God Yuan fired back with a direct counterattack. Shen Yuxi felt an inexplicable rush, as expected of the designer she favored. Not only was his work top tier, but his personality was just as fierce. 4 words perfectly summed it up: kindred spirits. A mad dog like Woomoo deserved to be put in his place. She decisively typed a comment: honestly, Brother Moo is absolute garbage. That magic kitchen is a literal death trap. After posting, she still felt a lingering excitement, so she sent a direct private message to God Yuan. Mad dogs like this need a brutal reality check. Don't you dare show him any mercy. I'd honestly suggest taking out a loan just to destroy him. Shen Yuxi had already mapped out her move. Since God Yuan clearly found Woomoo insufferable, and his fanbase was already so aggressive, she wondered if she should hire a massive troll army to fan the flames and teach Woomoo a painful lesson. She needed him to realize that, aside from his parents and her own father, nobody in this world was going to tolerate his ego. Whoever she decided to support as a designer, he would inevitably go out of his way to bash them. Did he seriously think he was some supreme deity? He was spitting on her kindness and constantly pushing his luck. Actually, she'd been harboring these thoughts for a long time. The previous times her favorite designers were harassed, she had considered this exact scheme. Unfortunately, those designers, for some unknown reason, all chose to take the high road and ignore him. That had left Shen Yuxi absolutely fuming. But this time the vibe was different. This time God Yuan had struck back decisively, so she felt there was a real chance, and her mood brightened considerably. Meanwhile, I was doom scrolling through the thread in a foul mood when I suddenly spotted a private message like this. User Melancholy messaged, "Mad dogs like this need a brutal reality check. Don't show any mercy. At this point, I suggest you go into debt just to ruin him." My eyebrow arched in surprise. This person seemed to be the same HR recruiter who kept trying to scout me for Chen Xing a while back. However, since I suspected they were just an online scammer, I never bothered to reply. Instead, I just applied to Chen Xing in secret. I didn't expect them to reach out again today, and even through this digital screen, I could sense a thick, suffocating aura of bloodlust. It felt like a deep-seated personal vendetta. Normally, I might have just skimmed past it without sending a response. But since I was already feeling pretty frustrated, seeing such a savage comment actually made me burst out laughing. This was clearly my own battle. So why did it feel like they were angrier than I was? Suggesting a loan just to handle him, that's peak hatred. You can't just drop a bombshell like that. I shot back a question. Brother, do you have a personal vendetta against him? Shen Yuxi's reply was instantaneous, yes. Staring at the incoming message, I was momentarily stunned. I didn't expect this person to be so brutally blunt. Zero pretension, just straight to the point. God Yuan. Care to elaborate? Melancholy, he's one of my persistent pursuers. Every single time he catches me liking a design, he goes on a toxic rampage against the creator. You're far from the first victim. It's reached a point where I'm terrified to even hit like. I feel like I'm inadvertently sabotaging these talented designers. Melancholy. Knowing that my support causes my favorite works to get trashed. It's honestly infuriating and makes me feel utterly powerless. That's why I'm melancholy every single day. In order to milk some sympathy, Shen Yuxi intentionally painted herself as a tragic figure. Her username wasn't actually inspired by Woomoo, of course. It was more of a reflection of her general lifestyle. But she phrased it this way just to bait me into a heavy offensive, hoping I'd give Woomoo the legendary beatdown he deserved. That's his fatal flaw. In reality, Shen Yuxi had warned Woomoo countless times already. But the more she warned him, the more viciously he'd attack, desperate to prove he was superior to everyone else. He's convinced he's the only true genius designer. He's like a stone in a cesspool, both stinky and stubbornly hard. Now that she finally had a chance to use someone else's hands to cure his toxicity, she wasn't about to let this golden opportunity slip away. Melancholy bullying me is one thing, but trashing other designers for no reason is just plain irrational. Reading the messages from Melancholy, I suddenly felt like I was being targeted for the most ridiculous reason. If he genuinely hated my work, I could actually respect that critique, but to get flamed just because someone liked my post? That is absolute nonsense, isn't it? And he even put out a trash blueprint just to disgust people, using me as his personal punching bag. To take someone's hard-earned creative work, and drag it through the dirt for some shady, selfish motive. To just spray toxic garbage everywhere? Where's the professional respect? God UN. Thanks for the heads up, miss. I closed the chat window and shot a sharp glance toward Wumu's private office. Talk about a wolf in sheep's clothing. To think our so-called star designer is actually a twisted creep who bullies young women. Just you wait. I'm going to draft a blueprint that'll put you in your place. My reservoir of creativity all stems from my life before the transmigration, coupled with my own rare innate talent for high-end design. That is the foundation of my unwavering confidence, and the source of the power I use to dominate the industry. Meanwhile, staring at the message Lin Yuan sent back, a brilliant radiant smile and a deeply meaningful smirk spread across Shen Yushi's face. Given that God Yuan was already putting up a fight, she knew a spectacular show was about to begin. Adding in the inflammatory things she just said, the outcome wasn't just a safe bet, it was practically set in stone. With that in mind, Shen Yushi snatched up her desk phone and dialed Si Qingqing's extension outside. Her command was short and direct. Not 2 seconds later, Si Qingqing pushed open the CEO's office door, stepped inside and bowed slightly before the desk. President Shen, you called for me. Go hire a massive army of internet trolls. Find the thread by God Yuan on the portal, and right there under his post. I want you to ruthlessly tear Pastoral Song to shreds. Shen Yushi looked at Si Qingqing with eyes full of sparkle. Her smile was incredibly bright. It was obvious she was in a phenomenal mood. Intuition told Si Qingqing right then that President Shen had finally found the perfect opening. She asked instinctively, President Shen, are we finally dealing with designer Wumu? Others might be in the dark, but as his personal assistant Si Qingqing knew the whole sordid truth. The man was a textbook case of delusional arrogance. Not only did President Shen despise him, but even Qingqing found him utterly repulsive. He was only riding on the coattails of his father's long-standing friendship with President Shen's father. That was the only reason she hadn't fired his ass yet. He really thinks he's the center of the universe. Shen Yushi nodded firmly, a hint of cold ruthlessness in her voice. The troll count must be 5 times his total follower count. Make sure he never forgets his lesson for as long as he lives. This time she was ending it once and for all. She was never some helpless little bunny. If you truly provoke her, nobody gets out unscathed. I spent the entire afternoon buried in blueprints, and it wasn't until the office began to empty out that I realized the workday was finally over. I stood up to let out a massive stretch when my phone suddenly buzzed with a notification. I tapped it open to find an address sent by Shen Yushi, along with a transfer of 10,000 yuan. I squinted at the screen, feeling a wave of confusion wash over me. Why on earth was she randomly sending me cash? Just as my curiosity peaked, a frost-cold message from Shen Yushi popped up. The money is from your mom for her daughter-in-law. I've sent the location. Don't keep me waiting. I knew there was no such thing as a free lunch. Still, I honestly hadn't expected my mother to drop such a hefty 10,000 yuan red envelope. Man, she must really be head over heels for Shen Yushi. If she ever finds out this whole thing is a total sham, it's going to absolutely break her heart. I didn't dare let my thoughts spiral any further. I gave a small shrug and headed out the door, mounting my little electric scooter and weaving through traffic toward home. It was just past 6 p.m. when I arrived. The winter sun sets early, and I had to move fast today to get those clothes delivered to Shen Yushi. I was mentally cataloging which outfits to bring when I opened the door and froze in sheer terror. Right there in the middle of my small living room sat 2 enormous bulging sacks. Wrapped in crude black plastic bags, they looked exactly like a mountain of abandoned trash. My parents were glued to the sofa watching TV. Some chaotic family drama was blaring, capturing their absolute and undivided attention. They didn't even acknowledge my return. I turned to my mother with a look of pure bewilderment. Why is all this garbage in the middle of the room, chef boss? Without waiting for an answer, I reached down to drag the trash out to the curb. But Su Kuifan looked at me as if I had completely lost my mind. She clearly didn't understand the question. She stood to the side, shooting me a massive look of irritation. What do you mean, garbage? Yes. Those are your clothes, you brat. Didn't you say you were moving out to live with Yuxi? I went through the trouble of packing for you, and this is the thanks I get? Man, I really did dig this grave for myself, didn't I? I just never expected the consequences to come knocking at my door this damn fast. It's only been 2 days, I haven't even found a place yet. Staring at the corner of my pajamas, poking out from that crude black plastic bag, I slowly and dejectedly let go. But mom, this packing looks like a total rush job. You're lucky anyone helped you at all. Once you move in with her, You better be diligent and keep things spotless. Move fast, girls need to be pampered, you know. You know, girls need to be pampered. What kind of ancient logic is that? Can't us guys get a little bit of pampering too? I rolled my eyes. Sure, sure. Whatever you say, Mom. With a sigh, I fished my phone out of my pocket and sent a quick WeChat message to Hausie. It looked like my only lifeline right now was to crash at Hausie's place for a while. Hausie is a textbook Northwesterner who decided to stay in the city after graduation. He's currently a full-time gaming streamer, pulling in about 7,000 or 8,000 a month. I drafted the message and hit send. Your brother is in deep trouble. Can I crash for a few days? Not even 3 seconds later, Hausie replied, no problem. I'm streaming tonight though. So don't you dare disturb my grind. The key is hidden by the door. Let yourself in. This is exactly what best friends are for. Forget about status or success. When you're in a pinch, they've always got your back. Slipping my phone back into my pocket, I glanced toward the dining table. It was completely barren. Not a single scrap of food in sight. Mom, you didn't cook dinner. Dinner for what? Go eat with Yuxi. Since you two are living together now, you should be sharing every single meal. If you go off and stuff your face alone, what's she supposed to do? Su Kuifan spoke from years of experience. The saying, it takes a woman to know a woman, was spot on. Back when she first married Lin Yuan's father, his habit of eating solo used to drive her absolutely insane. Now she refused to let her daughter-in-law suffer like that. Joint meals were non-negotiable. I let out a weary sigh. Every third sentence out of her mouth was about Shen Yuqi. Is she finding me a wife or a new CEO boss? Or maybe she's looking for a new grandmother to serve? If you adore her that much, why don't we just swap places? She can be your precious daughter, and I'll go take over as the company president, I grumbled, shrugging with total resignation as I hoisted the luggage. Fine, I'm heading out. Happy now. Well, obviously, you expecting an invitation to stay for New Year's? Mom snapped back with pure impatience, looking at her face. I caught the distinct impression she was celebrating her freedom. Once outside the front door, I strapped those 2 massive black trash bags of clothes onto my humble electric scooter. I pulled up the navigation app and punched in the address Shun Yushi had sent. Perfect timing since all my gear is here. She's been nagging me for clothes, and now the whole wardrobe is coming with me. She can pick through them to her heart's content. When the map finally loaded, Lin Yuan couldn't hide his shock. That residential complex was legendary. Money alone doesn't guarantee you a spot in there. Buying a unit is impossible, and they won't rent to just anyone. Most of the residents there are actual celebrities, and even they usually have to settle for leasing. The properties are strictly not for sale. In short, anyone who managed to live there was light years away from being an average citizen. Who knew the big sister lived in such a high-profile place? The ride took over 30 minutes, and my luggage even tumbled onto the asphalt halfway there, tearing a hole in one of the plastic bags. Staring at the Minsheng signage at the compound gates, I let out a long relieved sigh. Finally made it. I geared up to enter, but before I could even take 2 steps, 2 security guards stepped out and blocked my path. They actually had some pretty decent manners. The guy stepped forward and gave me a formal salute. Just as I was thinking how elite complexes are built different, I heard one of them, the shorter security guard, speak up. My apologies, but our complex doesn't have any junk for you to collect. Try your luck somewhere else. I was speechless. Seriously, bro, which one of your eyes sees me as a junk collector? These bags are filled with clothes, not scrap metal. As I argued my case, the guard glanced disdainfully at my plastic bags and continued, sorry sir, but we don't donate old clothes here either. Everyone living here was either filthy rich or powerful. The guards practically memorized every single face. Factor in this beat-up electric scooter and these 2 massive sacks of raggedy-looking gear, and the guard's first instinct was that I was definitely a second-hand ragman. He probably thought the designer threads in this neighborhood would fetch a higher price on the market, which is why I'd come sniffing around. Listen, man, go scavenge for clothes in another district. The guard finished his piece and patted me on the shoulder. It wasn't hard to spot the pity swirling in his eyes. The kid was actually quite handsome. So why was he stuck doing such bottom-tier labor? Even just doing a random live stream? Or becoming an influencer would be better than this grind. He must have some kind of screws loose in his head. I was utterly baffled. What was with this solidarity among professionals vibe? I was just about to clear things up when a pristine pitch-black Rolls-Royce Phantom cut our conversation short. This was the first time this particular car had appeared in the complex. The 2 guards didn't recognize the vehicle, but they exchanged a look and chose to play it safe. After all, everyone in the zip code was dangerous to offend. The window rolled down smoothly from the inside, and Shen Yushi's stunning face appeared within the cabin. She shot me an expressionless look. Get in. I'm taking you home. Then she turned to the guards and added, he's my husband.